Hey, everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaub here with George Thomas, our film critic from the Akron Beacon Journal. George is here, and we are talking movies and streaming today. George, how are you doing?
I'm fine. It's amazing. We're still talking about movies in August. I'm
Yeah,
shocked.
theatrical releases are still alive. That's great to see. Maybe the box office could use a little bit of a jolt this weekend. I don't know if Nobody 2 will do that, but it did have a 2001 movie that came out, Nobody, and it was a modestly budgeted movie, 15, $16 million, and it made well over 55 million at the box office and probably turned a nice little small profit. And here we get a sequel, probably a little bit bigger budget, so maybe higher expectations, but maybe where this is where the sweet spot is for Hollywood, a modestly budgeted action movie that can make a little bit of money.
See, but see, it's weird to me because normally when a movie has the type of success nobody had, surprising.
Yeah.
Sure, the budget has been upped, yeah, but I'm kind of shocked it wasn't given a better release date because the movie's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it I'm baffled who's running the damn studios these days. I really am.
Yeah, it's I think Hollywood has a marketing problem. I think they don't know how to really push some of these movies. Maybe they thought, well, Nobody 2 is going to be a hard R-rated movie action. But again, though, you're talking about a movie that made some money its first time around. Now, yeah, it's 4 years, 4 years ago, but you got to imagine that it's going to have a little bit of box office legs, at least for a weekend or two. But I don't know. I think Hollywood just has an issue with understanding their audiences and who these movies should be marketed to. I think they probably felt that sting and with Mickey 17 not really knowing what to do. And that was Warner Brothers, though, that didn't quite understand what to do with that movie. And you had a big star like Robert Pattinson and others. And these Hollywood studios are just struggling to figure out how to maximize their audiences.
Common sense. You have a modest hit. Normally in Hollywood it's like you go from modest to bigger as far as
Yeah.
grosses go.
Right.
And normally with a big blockbuster, when you're doing sequels, the box office gradually decreases per sequel. This story of Hutch Manziel, Fasten for Hire, and it's written by the writer of the writer of the John Wick movie. That should be the dead giveaway. I mean, you talk about being a modestly
Yeah.
budgeted action film. It's from the writer of the John Wick movies.
Right.
There's instant cred right there for a certain
Yeah.
audience. Um, and you know, I was leery of this movie because I hadn't seen the original. Then I
Okay.
discovered it was an easy watch. I could watch it while writing. And the original was an action comedy about this former assassin dragged back into his life. It was funny. It had the requisite action. It was balanced, everything. Now, what do you do with a movie like that? Where do you take it? You've already dragged him back into his world, where he's in this one, he's back in that world,
Right.
and he needs a break. He wants to get the hell out, but he owes the government $30 million because he burned all this cash to Russians. It belonged to Russians in the first movie.
Yeah.
So they're making him do gigs, but he needs a break because he feels his family is fracturing. And he's right. His wife is on the verge of saying, I got to get out of this. His kids wonder when he's ever going to show up for him. And his solution is to take them to the one place that ever made him happy, where he went with his eccentric father, David, played by Christopher Lloyd, who at this point
Yeah.
in his career is just having a blast.
Yeah.
And they go to this backwoods water park called in Plummerville. And Hutch's handler, before he takes his break, warns him that it's in his nature to be violent. Yeah, well, no duh. He gets to this small town. He's intent. All he wants to do is have a good time. But his oldest kid, his son gets abused or gets bullied and sticks up for himself and decks the guy, causing a problem in the arcade in this town. And then on the way out the arcade, the family was walking out in its entirety, Hutch included, because his wife, played by Connie Nielsen, calmed him down. They were walking out. He was going to let it go. Except the manager of the arcade took it upon himself to give his daughter a little slap upside her head. You're a father? What would you do? And because it's Hutch Mansell, he goes off in a huge, huge way.
Yeah.
Sets the sheriff on him, sets the person who runs the town on him, who just happens to be in cahoots with a syndicate. He's being extorted by a syndicate for debts. And it's somebody on the map of one of Hutch's employers. And he decides, you can't walk away from this. You get the action, you get the humor, which is the best part of these two movies, period. Yeah. They're done in a comedic fashion. Bob Odenkirk is great. Christopher Lloyd at this point in his career is just having a time of his life with something.
Yeah.
And it's worth a look. I didn't expect much because it was a sequel.
Right.
And because they weren't showing a lot of confidence in it, but it's a great way to end the summer movie season.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned in your print review, Sharon Stone, getting a chance to stretch the acting legs a little bit and get into that seedy evilness, I think you had mentioned with Basic Instinct as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's so weird that a movie like this, you see a movie, and I'm not sure, I don't really know exactly what the production budget of this movie is, but the first one comes in at like 16 million, and maybe you're giving like another 10, 15 million for a sequel. Like, why can't we make modestly budgeted Hollywood movies anymore where you at least have some name recognition, like Bob Odenkirk, Sharon Stone, Christopher Lloyd, Connie Nielsen, and even though you're not necessarily swinging for the home run fence of $1 billion, $500 million profit at the box office, you're profiting, though. These studios, I think, need to wise up. Warner Brothers announced that they want to push out like 12 to 14 movies a year, which is it's great to hear as a cinephile, but it's also like, is this something that can be done in a, big, little, and small budgeting? If Warner Brothers can do that, then I fully support it. But, if they're trying to blockbuster the hell out of everything, I don't think it's going to work for them. And you have these little movies that, nobody made $56 million, but it profited. It's a profitable movie. And then you can go on and continue making other movies. And sometimes you get these smaller budget movies, you just don't know how much they're going to blow up. And then all you need is one of those movies to blow up. And then as a studio, you're sitting pretty with profit, as opposed to hoping and praying that your big $500 million, movie that you've put production budget, advertising, and everything in between into it doesn't quite live up to the box office expectations.
Oh, first thing, it made its money back. It made money because they didn't market Nobody Won.
Well, that's true.
I knew of it.
Yeah.
And I heard of it casually, and I really didn't pay attention, even though I didn't catch up to it until last week, until I saw the reviews, because I do look at reviews. And I'm like, really? But they made their money in box office, and I'm sure what contributed to them greenlighting a sequel is home video.
Yeah.
Whatever form it was, be it streaming, somebody paying $20 to stream it, or the DVD, or the Blu-ray, or whatever.
Right.
That's where it's like, we can mine this again.
Yeah.
Why isn't Derek Kolstad's name on this thing? from the writer of John Wick,
Right.
which is puzzling.
It's a good question. I mean, that's it. That is your marketing strategy right there. From the writers of John Wick that have made $1 billion of these movies, why wouldn't you try to, pilfer that for as much as it's worth? Because some people are going to be like, oh, and then I don't know much about the director of this film, but they have a new director for the sequel, and apparently they've made like these really like violent movies in overseas, and like, why don't you like really dig into that? Like, if you thought John Wick was violent, here's this, or something like that, where you can really, maybe perk some interest from people, because I think that's kind of what you got to do nowadays. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is Bob Odenkirk this gigantic mainstream star? No, but he's well known, and I think people finally got a chance to see something a little bit different from him when he did make Nobody and kind of cross over into leading man status there. But yeah, it just feels like there's laziness. Like maybe Hollywood assumes that people are just going to go to the theater because that's something to do on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, whatever. And I think they need to stop thinking that way, because, there's a reason why we've only had $1 billion movie so far this year. And that's Lilo and Stitch. And that had a $1 billion run because it had a very big nostalgia love for people that grew up watching it, who are now having kids that can get their kids involved in it. The other possible almost made it to the $1 billion mark was a Minecraft movie, which again has a lot of built-in audience. But you can't assume that, well, Superman's coming out or the Fantastic Four are just going to, destroy the box office for weeks on end, because that's not. People might go see it opening weekend, but look at what Fantastic Four had to deal with gigantic second and third week drops. And it is woefully behind probably what they were hoping for out of that, with a $200 million plus budget, along with advertising and a lot of, tie-ins and product placement. But it seems like the box office really needs to readjust itself. And maybe that part of that is the studios getting back to working harder about putting their movies out there. And then also maybe reasonably budgeting some of these movies moving forward, where we can get back to the 10, 15, $20 million small movies that can make 30, 40, 50, 60, $70 million or more at the box office and actually turn profits for these studios.
I hate to tell you this, and I'm not going to mention the studios by name. I'm prepping my fall and eventually my holiday movie previews, and I look at these two studios and I'm like, I messaged my local rep, and I said, these two studios have basically given up on the rest of the year. And all they could do is, because one studio has a bunch of anime coming, and the other, it's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothingness.
Well, that's where we're at right now. I mean,
don't know if we say it's due to the writer's strike again or not. I really don't know. But it's troubling, and they've forgotten how to do their job. I don't know if we're dealing with marketing people who grew up in the era of streaming,
right,
who don't appreciate film.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's true too. And real quick before we go, we do have some streaming as well. John Cena is back in Peacemaker season 2. I have to tell you, George, I did not see Peacemaker season 1, but now that Peacemaker is in the DC universe here, with James Gunn kicking off the new universe with Superman and Creature Commandos, as you talked about earlier in the year, I'm kind of intrigued. I do like John Cena as well, so I'm kind of intrigued by this as well. But I think my interest has peaked a little bit more because Peacemaker is riding off the coattails of being in the same cinematic universe as Superman. So what are your thoughts here on season 2 of Peacemaker?
I binged 5 episodes they gave me today.
Okay.
And it's good. And what I like You know, James Gunn has this innate ability to find the heart of a character. Now, it's pretty evident with James Gunn and Peacemaker that the character, who is this sexist, racist, misogynistic, bigoted idiot when we first meet him in the Suicide Squad,
Hmm.
is on an emotional and quasi intellectual journey. And it I think it's James Gunn at his best doing character development with this particular guy, with this particular
Yeah.
character. I mean, I was more interested in what was happening to him emotionally and
Hmm.
intellectually as opposed to the action. And there's plenty of action. You can't do Peacemaker without the violence. You just can't.
Right.
But I don't know if you were worried with the DC universe. I don't think we've discussed how much interest you have in it, but it's evident for me. I was questioning whether we were going to get a bunch of PG-13 movies,
Right.
and it's like, judging from Peacemaker, the rating is going to be wherever the content takes James Gunn.
Yeah.
And could we see an R-rated DC Universe movie? I suspect, given the horror nature that comes from Clayface, that's a
Right.
distinct possibility.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, yeah.
and
Go ahead.
he's not playing it safe here, and I can
Right.
appreciate that. Um, Great performances, well done, and I'm hooked. I hope they don't send me the next 5 episodes so my wife and I can watch those together. Because
Right.
right now she's not very happy with me that I got.
Yeah, and you asked about my excitement level with the DC universe. I'm actually, Superman has kind of grown even more on me as I think about it, or even when you kind of, not that it's always fair to do, but compare it a little bit to Fantastic Four, which I did like. But I just feel like Fantastic Four was kind of a straightforward, didn't seem very scale as much as Superman. As Superman was taking a little bit more chances, I thought. And I think James Gunn just found a way to tell a really wholesome Superman story, and I'm glad that it's done well at the box office. Some people will maybe debate that. I don't know if some people will say that it didn't make enough money to profit or whatever. I think it's made enough money to appease DC and Warner Brothers and allow for James Gunn to continue on with this journey, and I'm excited for it because I really think that he's understanding of the material, and I think he's going to try to put in place the best talent he can to make other DC properties. And then when the time is right, the time will be to bring all these people together for a Justice League movie and not feel like the Snyderverse, where it felt like, oh, we got to rush to it because we were so far behind Marvel. Like, I think he's feeling like less pressure because Marvel is seemingly getting ready to reset after the next two Avengers movies. And I think he looks at it like, I don't have to rush into a Justice League movie to compete at that level with Marvel right now. I just need to make my movies. I need to hire my talent. I need to hire the people in front of the camera, behind the camera, whatever it may be, to go make the best movies they can possibly make. And I really thought Superman was a really nice film, and I can't wait to see more of this universe begin to expand. So much so that I know you talked about Creature Commandos earlier in the year. It wasn't necessarily on my radar, but it became on my radar after watching Superman and wanting to kind of delve into the Gunn universe.
Yeah, interesting thing you said about Superman not making, people saying it didn't make enough money. It's one of those situations where I talk about the original and doing good business and then the sequel or eventually going up. You know who that happened to? A comic book movie was? Which movie that happened to?
Well, the
Christopher
Batman.
Nolan's Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Because that one started out by Warner Brothers standards, modestly. They were unsure of a sequel. I don't know what got it greenlit. and then The Dark Knight just blew the heck up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a modest, and at the time, I think people didn't really know what to do with Batman, and so people were apprehensive maybe with Batman Begins, and it only made I think it made less than 400 million, or at least less than 500 million, so it wasn't necessarily, like you said, a gigantic success at the box office, and then The Dark Knight gets greenlit, and it just sets a new standard for superhero movies in general, and look. And a lot of people, I think, too, are doing the comparisons with what Man of Steel did and how much it made overall. You've got to be pretty pleased, though, with the domestic take from Superman. Like, usually the domestic take for a movie of those stature is way lower than the international take. Now, I was a little surprised that internationally it just hasn't done as well, but you're talking about a movie that's going to close in around $600 million after it's all said and done. I know that there was a lot of talks about interest in DC and properties on HBO Max were being streamed a little bit more frequently after that. You have all the video on demand that's going to be coming soon, starting tomorrow. So there's a lot to really digest here, that it's more than just the box office. It's kind of what's going on in the periphery as well. And I think you're seeing Warner Brothers understanding that this movie has been successful. Now, would we like it to make $800 million? Of course. But I think the movie probably still turned a profit, even with a $225 million budget. And I think with video on demand, Blu-ray, all that kind of stuff, merchandising, it's going to be a success for Warner Brothers moving forward.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Although I'll be honest with you, I'm a bit wary of Supergirl, so we'll see.
Okay, why weary about it?
I'm just worried that it won't connect because
Mm.
Kara-El isn't exactly a well-known character,
Right.
outside of comic bookdom. And I remember Supergirl back in the 80s.
Right.
I'm dating myself. And even on the heels of Christopher Reeve's success, that couldn't do anything. Of course, it's at the time, it seemed like a desperate play for bucks even back then.
Right.
So
yeah,
we'll see.
I'm intrigued by the tone, though, and I think getting someone like Craig Gillespie to direct, who directed I, Tonya, I think we're going to have some tonal shifts from Superman. Obviously, that's already been hinted at with Supergirl's appearance in Superman. But I don't think it's going to be a huge box office success. But I think Warner Brothers clearly thinks that it can be, giving it a June release. I mean, they're not trying to bury it in the spring or some weird fall or winter release. So they're backing it at the very least. And, will it make $400 or $500 million? I don't know. Now, another question would be, is the budget going to be the same? Is it going to be a more modest superhero budget than what Superman was, for instance? But either way, I'm intrigued by this universe, and Peacemaker will probably go on my list of things to watch now, because I did enjoy the Suicide Squad, but never really thought about the TV show. And then now I'm like, you know what, the Gunn universe has got me hooked a little bit. I admire Gunn. I think he's a good filmmaker, and I think he's a good writer, and I think that he brought those kind of wholesome sensibilities, like you said, kind of getting into the character and the heart of the character. And he does that with Superman, and he does it in a way where he's unapologetically Superman is wholesome, all-American guy.
I will say about Peacemaker, there's nothing wholesome about the character, and it comes through in more than a few scenes.
I'm sure that it does, yes.
I haven't done this in a while. I just finished my review about an hour ago, and I close with a warning to parents. It's like, no, this. I'm sure it's got a TVMA. I have to check the rate.
Right.
But it's going to be TVMA for a good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that a little bit lighter this week. What do you have on the horizon for the next couple of weeks here?
Oh, let's see. I did learn that I am getting what's the Aronofsky film?
Caught Stealing.
Yeah, we're getting a screening. Yeah, nothing next week.
Okay,
Wow.
not no Honey Don't the latest from Ethan Cohen as the Cohen brothers continue their individual filmmaking here.
Uh, who made that last movie? Was it Ethan?
I can't remember. I think it
He,
was because this seems tonally kind of like the same. So I want to say that it might have been an Ethan Cohen movie.
yeah, that thing was a disaster as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Drive Away Dolls, right? Was that the?
Yeah, and I'm not too interested in seeing Ethan Solo anyhow, and something tells me that one's being hidden, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
All right. Well,
Um, Beyond
sounds
that, it's
good.
going to be streaming,
Yeah. Did
and
you get to see Highest to Lowest with Denzel?
hopefully I'll have access to that next week. As of
Okay.
right now, I do not.
All right.
And they are treating that more like an Apple TV Plus release than they
Yeah.
are a theatrical release.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, as always, you can read everything from George at beaconjournal.com. George, always great to talk to you, and we will talk again real soon.
All right. All right, dude.